Hello. In this video, we're going to be talking about carbohydrates, specifically disaccharides and polysaccharides. So let's not waste your time. Let's get right to it. Now, when we're talking disaccharides, again, we're talking about dehydration synthesis. We've taken two monomers. Okay, di meaning two. We've taken two monomers, two monosaccharides, and bonded them together using the OH attachment points. Okay, in this case, oxygen would be that bonding element, but we use dehydration synthesis. In other words, the two monomers came together, two monosaccharides came together, a water molecule left, and that water molecule will be used for lots of things, and we'll see that in action when we get to cellular respiration, photosynthesis, chapter 6, energy. You'll see that in full force. But disaccharides are super important. I mean, they're used for sugar transport, energy storage, which is typically the same thing. The energy transport would be you make a disaccharide and it just needs to go somewhere else. And so it's transported out, whether it's put into the bloodstream, which is typically the way that would happen, and gets to the point where it needs to get to. But some examples of disaccharides: sucrose, okay, lactose, maltose, and lactose we're familiar with. Sucrose we are too. Sucrose is you see that is used as a sweetener in a lot of things. Lactose obviously is a reference to milk, is where you would see that, lactose tolerance, that kind of stuff. So these are pretty well known disaccharides, and of course we talked about dehydration synthesis is the building process, but when those two monomers are put together, the bond between them is called a glycosidic bond. Now, glycosidic bond is not a type of bond like covalent or ionic or hydrogen bond. It's not a type of bond as far as a process, but when those bonds occur between monosaccharides to form a disaccharide, it's called a glycidic bond. When we're talking polysaccharides, so now we've taken more than two monomers and put them together to just a chain of monosaccharides. And again, as I mentioned in that initial video, the reference point to dehydration synthesis is a long number, is a big number. Again, here's another reference to it as well, but it's built through dehydration synthesis. That water molecule leaves. We've got the OH attachment points. We've got the bonding elements. All those processes that we've talked about. As I mentioned, that dehydration synthesis, that's something we talk about all the time, and hydrolysis as well. Now, there are four major classes of polysaccharides. Starch, which we referred to, but that's the energy storage in plants. Things like rice, pasta, potatoes, all big sources of starches. But a plant will make a glucose molecule, okay, and then take several of those and build and convert it to a starch. We will tend, as carnivores, we will come along and eat those food sources and take that energy molecule and convert it to glycogen for short-term energy storage in animals. Now, two other classes that are super important: cellulose. Now, you hear about cellulite and fats and things like that, but this particular cellulose is a super important molecule because this is the cell wall. This is what helps build cell walls in plants. This is also something that we don't do well at digesting. We don't have all the enzymes needed to digest cellulose, so we struggle with that And that's why there are some foods like corn that don't get properly digested as they go through the system. But cellulose is made of glucose. That's why it's here as in the carbohydrates, and it's a type of polysaccharide. The last one, which is super important to the insects, because it gives them such great protection, and that's chitin. You can think of chitin as similar to like fingernails and things like that, but it's not. That's keratin. It's not quite like that, but it is the hardened shell of an insect. When you hear that crunch when you step on an insect, that's the chitin you hear breaking. But that exoskeleton, and you can also see it also on some fungi, their outer shell, their cell walls as well. Well, that's our look at carbohydrates, specifically disaccharides, polysaccharides. So in our next time we get together, we'll be talking about lipids. So we'll see you then.